Hello friends, it's Kristie Marcotte. In today's video, I'll be using Jaded Blossom's brand new May 2024 release. Here's a quick look at the May release, lots of fun goodies. And if you are interested in any of the products, I do have links in the description box below. There are 3 stencil sets. We have Bubble Stencil, Seaweed Stencil, and also Mermaid Silhouette Stencil. And the Mermaid Silhouette is the freebie you'll receive if you purchase at least $50 worth of product, and one item must be from the new release. This is for a limited time and while supplies last. Next up, we have the stamp set Make a Splash Gnomie, and there are also coordinating outline dies. Lots of really fun sentiments. I shall always love you. Hope your birthday is fantastic. Happy birthday to an enchanting creature. And it also includes a little face image. So if you like your gnomes to have a face, you can use this stamp. The next stamp set is called Mermaid to be Friends, and there are also coordinating outline dies. There is a large mermaid image along with the die, plus lots of fun sentiments. Sending positive mermaid vibes, birthday greetings from under the sea, I think we mermaid to be friends. Jaded Blossom never disappoints with their fun sentiment sets. The next die set is very special to me. This is called Embellishment Cluster Die, and this is a set that I requested Jaded Blossom carry. So I was super excited when I saw it was included in this release. There are 4 different shapes in 3 different sizes, and the nice thing about the dies, 6 of the pieces are all welded together, so you can quickly cut out lots of custom embellishments since you're cutting them from paper. There is a new gnome add-on set. This one's called Mermaid, and there are lots of dies in this set, 61 pieces. You'll be able to create an adorable mermaid. There's also a smaller mermaid image, a seahorse, there's seaweed, coral, several different shells, little bubbles, and there's even a little fork for the mermaid to hold. This is a really fun set. The mermaid gnome image is so cute. The final item that's included in the release is called Fancy Shell Die. You have the large shell, there's the outline, and it even includes a little pearl. So that's everything that's included in the May release, and I do have links in the description box if you're interested in any of the products. After snipping apart the Embellishment Clusters die set, I did a little bit of prep work, so I have lots of embellishments all ready to go. And since you get 6 embellishments on each die piece, it really didn't take very long at all to cut out all of these pieces. But I will admit I did pay my daughter to do some of the die cutting. For now, I focused on gold, silver, some of the holographic colors. I think there's a little bit of rose gold in there. I figured I'd go with the basic colors that I would use most often. And I found this container at Hobby Lobby. Since I donate a lot of my cards, and they don't always want the extra dimension since it'll cost more for postage, I love the idea of having paper embellishments. I do have 5 cards to share with you using products from the new release. I figured I would start off by assembling one of the new mermaids. I've already gone ahead and die cut out all of my pieces, and I have all of them stored in one of scrapbook.com's stack and sort trays. For the very background piece of the mermaid, I used some white cardstock, and all of this will be covered up. I used a skin tone cardstock for the mermaid's body, and this is from P13's Skin Tone Paper Pad. Jaded Blossom does carry it. I used some teal iridescent cardstock for the mermaid's tail. I find the easiest way to assemble the mermaid is to start with the body, then add the tail, the fin. Next, I'll add the mermaid's head, and then attach the hat on top. And I use one of Doodlebug Design's Petite Print Collections for the hat. I did pop up the nose using some foam dimension. Now I'll attach the hair, And you'll see more of the hair flowing on the right side of the mermaid. There are 2 other hair pieces that frame the face, and I will put foam dimension on the bottom of each of those hair pieces before adhering them right next to the nose. Now I'll add the mermaid's top. Start with the string of her top, and I did use some white shimmer cardstock for that piece. Then I'll add the 2 pink shells. Put glue on the back and adhere both of those in place. So there is my mermaid almost finished. She'll be wearing the new headband. It's decorated with bubbles, a shell, and a starfish. I cut out the background piece from some white cardstock, and all of that will be covered up. I'll add the band, and I use some white shimmer cardstock for that. Then I'll add the starfish on the right side. For the 3 little bubbles, I cut them out of silver holographic cardstock, so they're super sparkly. 2 of the bubbles will be tucked underneath the pink shell, and the final bubble will sit in front of the pink shell, so I will pop it up with some foam dimension. And I do need to cut just a teeny tiny piece of foam. This is why I always keep the small pieces of specialty cardstock, since sometimes you only need a tiny bit, like for these 3 shells. Then I'll put glue on the back and adhere the headband on the hat. The mermaid will be holding a shell. I use white cardstock for the background piece, and all 4 of the layers I'm using some off-white cardstock. It looks a little bland right now, but I will be adding a little more detail. First, I'll glue the 4 pieces of the shell on the white cardstock piece. I'll start by adding a little bit of ink along the top using Distress Oxide Saltwater Taffy ink color. And I also want to add an iridescent shimmer. I'm using Picket Fence Studios Liquid White Snowflake Watercolor. I'll put just a tiny bit on my silicone mat, then with my finger I'll gently rub it all over the seashell. So once it dries, it'll have this beautiful iridescent finish. I love that by adding a little bit of ink and some watercolor, it really changes the look of the die cut piece. And I will set that aside to dry completely. The pattern paper I'll be using for this card is from Reminisce. It's their Friends Forever collection. I thought this design would look beautiful as the background for one of the mermaids. There is an outline piece for the seaweed, coral, and grass, but I won't be using it for this card. Instead, I'll use the pieces individually. I cut out several of the seaweed, coral, and other grassy pieces, and I'll adhere them at the very bottom of this panel. And I did cut out the pattern paper using a stitched rectangle die from Love from Lizzie. I have the seaweed pieces hanging off the edge of this panel. I'll flip it over, use my scissors, and trim off the extra. Now I'll add some of the grassy pieces and also the coral. And I'll do the same thing, the very end of those pieces will hang off the end. I love how the background pattern paper has the look of glitter just gathering down at the bottom. Perfect for a mermaid card. I have one more coral piece to put on the left side and one more grassy piece. I'll also be adding one starfish on the very left side, and it'll tie in with the headband of the mermaid. I'll flip over this panel, use my scissors, and trim off the extra. I'll layer the background piece on a scallop rectangle die cut, and this is a die set from Jaded Blossom. I love how it has the little cutout detail along the edge of the scallops. Now put adhesive on the back and layer this piece on some white shimmer cardstock. I'm using ATG tape and also some glue along that outside edge just to help it lay nice and flat. Now put ATG tape on the back and add my card front onto a card base. All of my cards in this video are American Standard A2 size, 4¼ inches by 5½ inches. Now I'll add the last starfish in the lower left-hand corner. I will be popping up the mermaid using some foam rounds from scrapbook.com. This is their 2mm thickness, and I am using some of the negative portion of the foam. No point of wasting any of that. I'll also cut down some of the foam pieces so I can fit them behind her tail. Don't want any of that foam visible from the front of the card. I'll make sure to get good coverage on the back of the mermaid. That way there isn't one area that sags. I'll remove the release paper, but before adding the mermaid, I'll first attach the sentiment in the upper right-hand corner. I've already stamped and cut out the sentiment, "Have a mermazing birthday." And I stamped it on some light teal cardstock that matches the pattern paper. I'll put glue on the back and adhere it in the upper right-hand corner. Now I'll add the mermaid, and I'm putting her at a slight angle. The mermaid will be holding the shell, and now that it's completely dry, I'll attach both of her hands, put a little bit of glue behind the fingers, attach one hand on the right side of the shell and the other one on the left side. Then I'll flip over the shell, put foam dimension on the back, make sure to get good coverage. I'll remove the release paper and add the shell in front of the mermaid. And I didn't want to cover up her top completely, although you'll only see a tiny bit of it on the left side. Using a white gel pen, I'll add a few highlights on my mermaid, putting them on the hat, the center of the starfish, the seaweed, the coral, and also on her nose. Then for a final finishing touch, I'm using a clear glitter brush from scrapbook.com, and I'll add some lovely glitter all over her hair. I think a mermaid needs to have lots of sparkle. This is a clear glitter brush, so it won't change the color of her hair. It does look a little bit darker right now, but once it dries, it doesn't change the color. So there is my finished card, and I did make 2 using this design. I love how this card turned out. Lots of sparkle from the glitter brush, the iridescent cardstock, and also the iridescent watercolor on the shell. Now moving on to card design number 2. For the rest of my cards, the pattern paper I'm using is from Doodlebug Designs' Seaside Summer Collection. I'll be using the 6x6 paper pad and also some of the 12x12 sheets. For the background of my card, I selected 2 pattern papers. Both are tone-on-tone designs. I have starfish at the very top and waves at the bottom. I layered both of the pieces on some blue cardstock. There is a little gap between the 2 pattern paper pieces, but no worries, I'm adding a wavy border die cut. And this is from Jaded Blossom's border die set. I put double-sided adhesive tape on the back side, adhered it down. It's a little bit longer than my card panel, so I simply flipped it over, used my scissors, and trimmed off the extra. Then I'll put ATG tape on the back and add my card front onto a card base, leaving 1/8 of an inch of the white card base showing. Next, I'll add a large stitched oval die cut, and here's where I'm using some of the 12x12 paper. It's the same wavy design I have on the background. I also cut out a Scallop Oval die cut, and both of these are from Jaded Blossom. I use vellum for the Scallop Oval. I'll adhere the 2 pieces together, making sure only to put adhesive behind the wavy oval. That way it doesn't show through on the vellum. This card will also be featuring a mermaid, but I thought I would try to make a merman. The gnomes have lots of different beard options, but I'm using the new hair for the mermaids instead. I simply turned it up and down. It's not quite as wide as the beards that are available. I trimmed off the very top portion of the hair, didn't want it visible behind the hat. Then I'll attach the hat, add the mustache, and finish off my merman with the nose. And I will pop up the nose using some foam dimension. The skin tone cardstock I'm using for this merman is also from the P13 skin tone paper pad that Jaded Blossom carries. The merman will be holding a seahorse. I use white cardstock for the very background. And for the eye, I'm adding a Love from Lizzie peel off. This is the mini circle style. But you could also use a black marker, or you could cut out that piece and inlay the tiny die cut. I used some yellow tone-on-tone polka dot paper from Doodlebug for the main body of the seahorse. And for the seahorse's mane, I'm using some teal glitter paper. This is the first time I assembled the seahorse, and you will want to add the mane down before the body. Luckily, I was able to peel up the body and sneak that mane underneath. For the fin of the seahorse, I used a darker yellow cardstock color. And I'll adhere the fin down using some glue. After attaching the mane, I did notice some of the white background piece of the seahorse peeking through, so I simply used my scissors and trimmed that portion off. Now I'll attach the merman's hands on the seahorse. Flip it over, put foam dimension on the back, then I'll add the seahorse in front of the merman. For a sentiment, I've already stamped and cut this out. Make a splash Gnomie. I used the outline die and cut out a second piece from the same blue cardstock, and I'll layer the two pieces together, creating the blue drop shadow underneath the sentiment. Now I'll pop up the merman and also the sentiment using foam dimension. I'm using a narrow foam strip behind the sentiment and some black thin foam squares behind the merman. And I will need to trim down some of the foam pieces to fit behind the merman, especially behind the tail and the very tip of the hat. I'll remove the release paper, add the sentiment at the bottom of the oval, and put the merman right above inside the oval. I think the merman looks so happy holding the sweet little seahorse. Using a white gel pen, I'll add highlights on the hat, the nose, the tail, and also the seahorse. Then to finish off the cards, I'll add some of the die cut embellishments. I cut these out from teal iridescent cardstock, and I'm using all three of the sizes. I'll put 3 stars in the upper right hand corner and 2 on the left side of the merman. And the extra stars I cut out, I'll simply pop them inside the box that I showed earlier with all the different paper embellishments. So there is my finished card, and this time I only made one of this design. I really like how this card turned out, and it was fun to find a way to make a merman instead of just the mermaids.